as you can see, a very snowy day in Reno, Nevada as we cruise on in here to Peppermill, and I am hoping the action is good in a 5-10 game that is starting right now. So I'd plug in and head on into Peppermill for vlog 297. Kayla would head in all red. We were coming off a day when Bugsy was good enough to bring pizzas for the whole table. We were coming off a day when Slick showed up rocking a new Rolex after he cashed in on the Eagles Super Bowl win.
This is Philadelphia Eagles, baby.
I told him I'd be happy to take his old one off his hands because, you know, I'm a watch guy too, but apparently he'd already sold it. And we were coming off a day when SVA bet me $5 that Mr. W would go all in right on the very next hand, which was a bomb pot. So all I had to do was fade an all in from one player on one hand to win $5, and Mr. W would flop 3 kings, and sure enough, he'd shove all in, and I'd lose that $5. I'm not sure anyone has ever been happier to win that particular amount of money off of me than he was in that instance. Anyway, he was in the game again on this day, along with Bugsy, as well as Reno Grinder and a few other guys who were tough to beat. So booking a win on this Thursday looked like it was going to be a challenge. We'd fire the game up at noon on table 1. The first hand I'd get involved in would come when we get an under-the-gun limp, and I would look down at kings +1 and make it 35. Folds to the low jack, who 3-bets to 105, and I would simply make the call, hoping this line would result in a big flop bet. But with 225 in and the board coming out 9-7 deuce 2 diamonds, it results in merely a small flop bet, only $75. And I gave it some thought, but ultimately decided just to call, hoping that I could continue to under-rep my hand, thinking that he was probably going to fold jacks or 10s to a raise anyway. So at 375 in, the turn pairs the 9, and no one bets. River rolls off an offsuit 4, and I would lead here for $150, which I pretty much knew immediately was a mistake, as it should have been obvious that jacks or queens would bet bigger on the flop and at least consider a turn bet, so I think he's going to end up there with ace high a lot of the time. I should have just checked the river, but I would bet and he would muck quickly, and that is how this day would get started. So it was nice to win that hand, but not nice to see the news on the screen that Shea Theodore, my Vegas Golden Knights, is now week to week, which means months, after getting hurt in the Four Nations face-off. And while I'd like to see Team USA win, the only thing I'm really rooting for is for no Golden Knights to get hurt. And sure enough, a guy who was having a career year has that happen, and I, for one, am on tilt about it. So the lineup was not great, which is why I played this hand the way that I did. I pick up pocket queens and raise to 35 on the button. The player in the under-the-gun 1 spot in the rock 3-bets me to 105, and I call. So with 215 in, the flop is ace high, and he just bets 50. I make that call, so with 315 in, the turn is a 10. He checks, and I just check back, thinking that a river bet will probably be coming here. But when that card peels off, and it doesn't come, I now make a small bet, putting in 50. He thinks about it for only 5 seconds, and mucks, saying that he didn't need that ace. Turned out, it saved him some money. I was then in the rock, and would look down at 8 deuce. Slick, with his new watch, would now sit down in the game, fresh off the Super Bowl. By the way, how sweet was it to see the Chiefs get destroyed? Anyway, it wouldn't take me long to get into a hand with him when he'd raised a 75 over a limp. He likes to go big. I have pocket jacks in the cutoff, and for several different reasons here, this is an ideal spot to just call. So with 150 in, everyone else goes out, and we're heads up to 10-4-4 with 2 diamonds. And he bets 175 from the under-the-gun 1 spot. Thinking that more barrels are going to be on the way, I just call here. And with 500 in, the turn is the deuce of spades, and now he checks. Pretty clear he has nothing here, so shouldn't the play be to just check and hope for a river bet? I suppose you could argue that you should bet to try to actually get hands like ace-king to hang on, but I elected to just check and the river rolls off the 8 of hearts. He would check, and I would bet, and this is a bit of a theme of this day, small river bets that no one calls. I bet 1/8 of the pot, and he would find a check fold. I would then catalog that hand on the new FASTROLL app. If you've been looking for a way to easily write down what happens in big hands you play in, then this is definitely the place to go. You can see just how quickly I'm able to input this last hand against Slick, and after you're done doing that, you can get the full readout of how the hand played out. If you want to give that app a shot, you can get a free month added on to your year subscription if you use the promo code DEACH at checkout in the App Store. I'd then get a text from the legendary Mr. Z, now in Florida for most of the year, just to tell me that he's watching the movie that, along with Pulp Fiction, is my all-time favorite in Django Unchained. I would respond by asking,
"Are the bags on or off?"
And he'd respond to that by saying,
"So what? All that matters is can the fucking horse see?"
And that was that conversation. We'd get 2 limps and an OMC who rarely plays a hand, but plays the ones he does as if his life depends on it, makes it 40 MP2. I don't like the idea of 3-betting him in a general sense, because of how few hands he plays, but when I would look down at queens in the hijack, I opt to 3x him, making it 120. Folds back to him, and I could tell that he doesn't even count the amount of chips. He just slides a bunch of green ones into the pot. And if you tell me that this cold-blooded OMC is doing that without aces or kings, especially in this lineup, I think you're particularly crazy. So, the one time I take the aggressive route early on in this day with the big pair, I get it shoved right back up my ass by a guy who might 4-bet there without kings maybe once a century, but definitely not twice. I would then 3-bet ace-king on the button and ended up losing a fairly large 3-way pot with ace-jack actually coming out on top in it. And after that, I'm not going to waste much time talking about it because I'm upset at myself for doing it in the first place, but I would just kind of try a random bluff on Slick. There was something that I had kind of picked up on in terms of him not being strong. Turned out that was right, but he would flop a pair of 10s and call me down with it. So I'd bluff off about $250 to him. But hey, I gave it to a nice guy. A hand against SVA would play out where I'd forget to hit record, but I would avoid disaster when I had deuce 4 of clubs. Do I have to tell you I was in the rock? Anyway, there would be basically no action. I think I'd bet 25 on the turn with a pair of deuces and a backdoor flush draw. He would call me. The river would come the 6 of clubs, pairing the board. Turned out he had pocket 6s for the rivered full house. When I made the 4-high flush, I would bet fold, saving about $175 by not paying him off. But it was close. I almost did. I obviously can't show you every hand I play on these vlogs. The hands that I do show you are the hands that tell the story of how the day played out for me. And I have to do something right now that I've done probably 5 or 6 times throughout the history of these vlogs, and that is not show you what I had in the hand. The reason for that is we'd get a guy sit down in the game who was probably 25 years old and bought in for $5,000. I don't think I've ever uttered that exact sentence in my life in this game in the Peppermill. But obviously everyone that's watching this vlog knows what that pretty much means. Not good news for the game. And if you're going to tell me that he hasn't watched this vlog or isn't watching this one right now, I would be shocked. And I don't know if I'm going to be seeing this guy around more or not. But there was a hand where he check raised me pretty big on a flop. I would call, turn would go check check, and I would fold to his river bet. Every decision he made in that hand, it took him basically an entire minute of thought before he did anything. And again, this guy, I have no doubt, is a very good player. But given the fact that he takes that long before every decision tells me that he is intentionally trying to aggravate his opponents with that technique. And that is a fucking Bush League technique if I've ever seen one. And it frustrated the hell out of me. So much that I would elect to just wrap up the session right there after losing that pot. Unfortunately, with the $250 or so that I lost in the hand, that represented the majority of my profit on the day on this one. So that was truly unfortunate. But I will not let him find out what I folded in that hand, because I refuse to give this guy any additional information in case I end up seeing him in this game going forward. Some of you guys like when I kind of keep it real on this vlog. Some of you don't, but some of you do, and that's what I'm doing right here. Racking up and booking the small win. All right, wrapping up about a 7-hour session here at Peppermill. The game, never very good. I'll talk more about that here in a second. I did manage to get dealt quite a few good hands, as you saw. May not have made the most of them, but you know, in a game like this, I like to try to limit damage, pick my spots to really get a lot of money in when no one's giving a lot of action. Pretty tilted about that dude sitting in the game late, so I'm going to book this $190 win. Should it have been more than that? Yes, it should have. Was it? No, it wasn't. Is the casino open tomorrow? Also, yes. All right, got to admit, not in the best mood as I record this section, which comes 3 days after the recording of the vlog you just watched. You know what'll make me feel better? Can I just get a little more Larry?
This is what happens. You see what happens, Larry? You see what happens, Larry?
Oh, if you missed last week's vlog, I was able to find a way to work that in. I'm just not sure that any actor has ever crushed it, literally and figuratively, more than John Goodman crushed it in that scene. It is the funniest damn thing that I've ever seen. Anyway, if you like the thought of watching someone try to overcome a challenge, then, well, watching this vlog this year might be for you. The games as they sit now here in Reno have, I don't think, ever been worse, which doesn't really come as a shock. When you think about what makes cash games good, at the end of the day, games generally will get worse every year. Obviously, that could go back and forth. Certainly in 2021, that was when the game was at its all-time best. But, and that actually got me thinking to a comment that I had seen quite a while ago, and it just kind of stuck with me, but I'd never actually read it on the vlog, and I was able to find it. It came from Michael Rosenthal a year ago. He talked about when I had a 10-session losing streak or something along those lines. And he had written in one of my favorite bendeach videos for many reasons, not only the 2 appearances by Kayla, it was therapeutic to see that even a poker pro such as BD, and then he writes the part you should pay attention to, in parentheses, defined as being able to win 60% of sessions regardless of whether poker income is primary or supplemental, which to me is a pretty good way to look at, because that part does apply to me, but saying that I'm a full-time pro obviously does not. And over the last couple of years, there certainly has been an influx of guys that could fall in to that category. And there are now a decent amount of guys that play in this game on a regular basis. But it's been interesting because they don't take money away from me by beating me in the poker game, just like I don't take money away from them. The impact that they're having on me is oftentimes clogging up seats in the game. So if I get there and I'm the 10th or 11th person, I can't get into the game, or me being in the game and they're clogging up seats that the guys who actually give action otherwise would have, and they get locked out of the game. That was something that in 2021, it felt like just didn't happen. Now it's happening constantly. So it's going to be a challenge not to have a winning year. I'm very confident that'll be the case, but my goal on this vlog now for the last 5-6 years has been, I think, an always realistic one, and that is simply to make more money than I made the previous year. And I certainly did not accomplish that the last 2 years. And while it wasn't far off, I would very much like to be able to accomplish that this year, but we're certainly not off to a good start. And the quality of the games are not going to make it easier. But I do enjoy a good challenge. So it'll be motivating to try to overcome what is a different landscape in terms of Reno cash games that I've seen in the past. And hopefully I will be able to create quality content while continuing to book wins in this game. If you have any thoughts on any of this, you're welcome to share them in the comments below. And if we get really good ones, like the one that Michael Rosenthal sent in, I'll try to pass them along in this space on future vlogs. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. You can also follow along on Instagram at bendeach. I'll see you back here next time.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out